Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission meeting for Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Bethay,
Here.
Ms. McSwain,
Here.
Mr. Parr,
Here.
Ms. Rogers Garner, Mr. Williams,
Present.
Ms. Jackson,
Here.
and Ms. Allen.
Present.
Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. You have before you the minutes from June 28th, 2022, which was the annual meeting. If there are no corrections, I need a motion for approval.
Motion for approval.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Bethay,
Yes.
Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
and Ms. Allen.
Yes,
The motion carries. The minutes are adopted.
thank you. Next, we have our financial report for June 2022. Good morning, Ms. Phillips.
Good morning. You've got the balance sheet, which in these days is called the statement of net position. And there's just a few things I wanted to highlight. One is your cash at Bank of America, which is set up by the city treasurer of $952, $53,144, and you're maintaining a $99,993 balance at Bank of America. I also wanted to note there's a $500,000 accounts receivable, and that's related to the Port Host Communities Grant that you're going to be receiving through the city and then paid out to Thomas Industrial. So auditing standards require that we report both sides of the transaction, that there's no net effect on your net position because we've got a debit and a credit that are equal. Burton's Point, two properties, there's no change there. On the liability side, you'll see the other side of the entry, the grants payable. There's two grants. The Port Host Communities Grant that we talked about a few minutes ago, $500,000 to Thomas Industrial. And there's also the Commonwealth Development Opportunity Fund that the commission has committed to pay out of commission funds, $180,000. And we're recording the full liability there. Now, if it turns out you pay less, then we'll let that liability go. We'll reverse that entry. But again, auditing standards require that we report the full potential amount. And if we get evidence to the contrary before we finalize the audit, great, we can adjust that. So your unrestricted net position, recognizing that commitment to lineage, net unrestricted position, $1,003,394. Okay. On the income statement, now called the statement of revenues, expenses, and change in net position, industrial revenue bond fees, no much change there. We've got our normal expenses, contractual services, and so forth. On the grant side, you'll see that $680,000 again that we're recording that obligation. And then you're showing coming in the contribution from the Port Host CRF through the city of $500,000. So the net effect there is $180,000 that's coming out of commission money. So change in net position is negative $179,955. And of course, the net position, $1,003,394. So that is all I was going to review. You've also got in your package the comparison of budget to actual. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, thank you, Ms. Phillips. Move on to old business, Port of Virginia update. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairwoman Allen. Thank you so much. Councilman Moody, Stephen Chapman. It's great to see you, and also to the PPIC Commission. It's great to be in front of you as we come to the end of summer. It's great to see the attendance too. So kudos for everyone being here this morning. I thought I'd keep my remarks short in light of pretty heavy agenda and obviously things to cover, but I did want to at least provide you all a summary and snapshot of how we ended this past fiscal year, FY22, which wrapped up obviously on June 30th of this year. And so it was another record year at the Port of Virginia. Our volumes were up 15% year over year. So it's very exciting because obviously coming out of COVID, there was a bounce back effect with volumes. And this was our first fiscal year removed from a bounce back to really demonstrate that we're not just haven't just grown because of the increase short term, but really it's becoming a substantial long-term gain. So we were up 15% year over year. And even if you look at just the month of July, which we did report our numbers for July, we grew almost 9% year over year for July. So we continue to see our volumes grow through the Port of Virginia. And that's obviously great for the health of the organization, but more importantly, we continue to drive the Virginia economy and support opportunities here in the city of Portsmouth, as well as throughout the whole region and the Commonwealth. So there's a lot of, I would say, interested parties that are out there in the market as we've proven ourselves when so many ports have failed. And that is a story that many ports have had to grapple with and deal with congestion and delays, and a lot of operational challenges. Virginia is different, and we haven't experienced near the level, if many, delays regarding the flow of freight through our facilities. And that's a real testament for great leadership at the port for many years, but also a sound investment package, investment portfolio. We continue to invest on terminal, both at Virginia International Gateway, which, here in Portsmouth is our most modern state-of-the-art container handling facility, really a gem when you look at other ports up and down the coastline. VIG here in Portsmouth is recognized as one of the best, and that's something we should be proud of. Obviously, the port, more importantly, as a city and here in Portsmouth. So continue to see great results. We are very much in our peak season. So as we are sort of ahead of the upcoming holidays, like, obviously we've got Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we're starting to see those volumes flow over our docks. So we're excited for a great peak season and ready to see what 2023 has in store. I will also, just before I conclude my remarks, make mention to the fact that we continue to work at Portsmouth Marine Terminal. I've come before this commission on a number of occasions to provide updates on where that stands. And of course, there have been a number of headlines around the repositioning of that facility to support the emerging of offshore wind. I can tell you firsthand, Brian and staff at City Economic Development have been a partner in that. We continue to work on those efforts. We've had a number of major announcements, such as Dominion Energy and Siemens Gamesa. Both of those projects are proceeding very nicely. In fact, Dominion Energy and Skanska has been awarded the contract for the improvements there at PMT. That work is beginning. We also have our partners, and happen to be partners in the room, so I'll recognize our friends from Crofton who are working to prepare the site as we take down a couple cranes that had been retired. In fact, the cranes were part of a VW settlement. We've gotten grant money. They were old diesel cranes, and they weren't efficient. They weren't, they were out of date. And those cranes were being dismantled, and our partners at Crofton, they were awarded that. And so it's good to see you all, and thank you for your work there at PMT. And I will leave it there, but open for any questions. Happy to field any from the commission.
Thank you. Mr. Barr.
Was the increase in volume mostly due to imports or exports or both?
It is mainly an import drive, as that's been the real sort of swing in our consumption across the board, right? So from, the Amazon e-commerce, but to obviously to finished goods and manufacturing. And so it was definitely import drive, but, exports have always been a staple of our cargo mix here in Virginia. We were very fortunate to have somewhat of a balanced trade lane. So let's say the 3.7 million, maybe 40% of those were loaded exports going out of that 3.7 million TEUs. So we still have obviously a lot of exporters, and we look to continue to grow that because, it really tells a great story to have the import side, but when you have that export side and exports that have value add associated to them, so a manufacturer here in Portsmouth that actually is taking a product and finishing it and sending about, obviously has a greater economic value and input into the community, into the business. And so we definitely are always trying to target those. And that goes into that sort of reshoring opportunities, nearshoring, and using the U.S. sort of tilting it and going to 180 from relying only on imports from overseas, but now become an export center. And there's a lot of efforts at the state level through some of the programs in commerce to really bolster exports. And it's something we're very keen on because we see the results. Companies that export create great jobs.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I want to take a quick opportunity to recognize our city manager, Ms. Lavonda Graham-Williams. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good.
You know what?
And she looked at me.
That's right. Madam City Manager Esquire. Ms. Tanya Chapman, good morning.
Good morning.
And of course, our city council liaison, Councilman Bill Moody, good morning.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Good morning. Okay, next up, we have our PPIC incentive program update. Mr. Donahue.
Thank you, Chair Allen. And if I can make just a couple of other introductions before we jump into that item. I would like to share with you that we do have some new team members that have joined the Economic Development Office here since your last meeting. So I would like to take a moment just to recognize and introduce both of them. First we have, and I'm going to ask you to stand, Ms. Tracy, but Amy Tracy, who is our new business development specialist. She's joining us from the Richmond region. She has relocated down to Hampton Roads and started now just over 2 weeks ago. But will oversee our business retention, expansion, and recruitment efforts, as well as some of our marketing and communications. So really excited to have Amy on board, and she's jumped right in assisting us in a number of things. So fortunate to have her with us.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We also have another critical member of our team is Edie Frazier. Edie has stepped in and is assisting with the role that Ms. Angie Shepard previously held. Ms. Shepard left to pursue another career path in July. So Ms. Frazier has stepped in and has really kind of jumped right in and hit the ground running to help with a lot of administrative needs that we've had. So just wanted to make you aware of those new faces that are in the room, and
Thank you.
you've likely heard from them at some point. If not, you will.
Okay, thank you so much.
We do have an update on the PPIC incentive program, and where we've left that is at your June meeting, we did approve and adopt a new program to incentivize job creation for industrial businesses expanding or locating in the city. Staff is now working to prepare the application materials that we will have with a goal of launching this program at the start of the second quarter. So we're looking at an October launch date to make this available to businesses that are eligible. So just wanted to follow up on the timeline, which is consistent with what we've discussed at your prior meetings, and we are on track to have that out and operating this fall. So just wanted to provide that update. Certainly, if you have questions, I can address those.
Any questions? Wonderful. Mr. Carr, you have an update on Saturday's victory?
Unfortunately, no. It seems like they are in full swing with back to school, but I have requested a meeting either later this month or early next month, and should be able to give a report in September.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. We are on to new business, the 2022 VMA Symposium sponsorship. Mr. Donahue?
Yes, thank you. We did include in your meeting package some information on the Virginia Maritime Association's International Trade Symposium, which is being held in Norfolk. It's an annual event being held September 28th through the 30th. In past discussions, the board has expressed an interest in sponsoring and participating in a number of industry-related events. There are opportunities for you to do that if you so choose. In support of the trade symposium, there are a number of levels in which you can do that. They were broken down in the package, but I really just wanted to see if there was an interest in participating and sponsoring a aspect of the trade symposium in September. I can share with you that our office, the City Economic Development Office, is looking to sponsor the golf tournament, which is actually hosted here in Portsmouth at Elizabeth Manor Golf Club. So we are looking to sponsor an event here in the city. But there are other opportunities for the PPIC if you're interested in doing so.
Ms. Farr?
I think we should sponsor the Maritime Mixer. I think we'll have the best opportunity for name recognition and be able to network as much as possible. That includes 4 tickets. I think we could purchase additional tickets if all of the commissioners wanted to attend.
You can, that is correct.
Like a consensus, Mr. McSwain?
I think that's a good idea. We can network a little better.
Ms. Thomas? Mr. Thomas, I'm sorry. Mr. Williams. Lord Jesus. Gotta put my glasses.
Yes, I can support it.
What date is the mixer on?
28th,
I believe the mixer is on the
28th.
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes, I believe that it would give me an opportunity as one of the newest commissioners to get familiar with, some of the people who are in the industry.
It sounds like we have a consensus. So what we'll just need, and we have time for this, we will register as a sponsor, but we'll just need a head count for the commissioners that would like to participate. We do obtain 4 tickets to the event, but if there are additional members who would like to be present, we can coordinate that for registration.
I'll send out an email this afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay. That will be,
Chair,
yes,
could
sir.
we also get admission to the symposium that day? I don't think it's included in the sponsorship, but if any one of us wanted to attend the actual symposium that Wednesday,
I'll include that in the email.
What time does a symposium begin?
I believe it
Um,
starts at
It's a multi-day event occurring on both the 28th and 29th. I do believe it runs for the full day on the 28th. I'm not sure the hours on the second day, maybe full day as well, but we can certainly provide a schedule. If there's interest, then we can send that out with email.
You can get that to me, I'll take care of that. Okay, the FY23 post Community Revitalization Fund grants. Mr. Donahue.
Thank you, Chair. We are pleased to present to you this morning for your consideration a application under the fiscal year 23 Port Host Community Revitalization Fund grant. We do have representatives from the applicant, which is Crofton Industries, here in the room this morning, Mr. Jake Crofton and Neil Cherry. Before we get into the meat of the application, I did want to provide a historical background and update for the benefit of those in the room this morning on the program itself and how it came to be in the intent, and then we will move forward with the actual presentation of the application. This program, for those of you who are not familiar with it, was developed in 2019 by the Virginia General Assembly, and it established this new Port Host Community Revitalization Fund in the Code of Virginia. It was developed by the Port Host communities. There are 5 in the Commonwealth of Virginia: Norfolk, Portsmouth, Newport News, Richmond, and Front Royal, which is an inland port in the northwestern part of the state. We're all participants in the development of the program. We've worked closely with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, which is the agency that actually administers the program, and then the partners that we have at the Port of Virginia. So we really all came together to create this program for the benefit of Port Host communities. The intent, as you can see here, is to leverage state, local, and private resources to achieve the redevelopment and revitalization of blighted properties and create a catalyst for long-term employment opportunities and economic revitalization. I'm going to read this because that is kind of hard to make out from a distance here on the screen, but the funding is really intended to be used for the strategic removal and redevelopment of port-related properties in the 5 Port Host communities. Port-related is considered to mean any non-residential structure that was built or used for a purpose related to port activities, is located near the port so as to benefit from port activities, or is located on or near a transit route that served or serves the port. Eligible properties and structures must exhibit physical and or economic blighting conditions. And some of your eligible uses for the program include the acquisition, rehabilitation, repair, site remediation, demolition, removal, and other physical activities. Eligible applicants include just those local governments that are considered to be port host communities, so the 5 that we mentioned. A unit of local government may apply directly for funding to use on publicly owned property or on behalf of a for-profit or nonprofit entity for privately owned property. You will see in a few minutes that the projects that we have submitted and been successful in receiving awards for are all privately owned and held properties. Localities may designate a redevelopment authority or similar organization as an agent for a project with the Chief Administrative Officer certification that the application has been determined to be the highest port-related priority for that grant year. So in Portsmouth, the Portsmouth Port Industrial Commission has been that designated body that has reviewed, vetted, and approved of the applications for the program. Following this board's historic approval, the applications go to the City Council for final authorization and approval for submission of an application to the state. The award amounts total of $1.5 million available in the program for the fiscal year. These are state funds. The awards are made on a threshold basis of up to $250,000 per port host community per fiscal year. And there is a maximum allowance of $1 million award potential available under the program. It's a competitive program. We are competing with the other port host communities. And essentially any funds that are left over in that pot are available for distribution to applications that need an amount greater than the base threshold of $250,000. The program does require a match, so the applicant does have to make a match. It's a 1-to-1 match. In terms of the award structure, all of the Port Host Community Grant Awards are made as grants to the locality. And it is the locality's determination if these funds are then awarded to the applicant as a grant or a loan. Historically, we have provided the funds as a grant. That seems to be the most advantageous, and from an administrative standpoint, also the easiest to administer as well. The projects do need to execute a contract and performance agreement with both the state and the city of Portsmouth. So we do have a contractual agreement that is executed for performance and completion of the improvements. And the projects are also required to have a deed covenant or a lien for a period of 5 years that requires state approval, local approval prior to the sale or change in end use of the property. So that is something that is required of the program. In terms of past projects, and again, we are now in the 4th year of the program's existence. Just to give you some historical context, the first award that was received in the inaugural year of the program, FY20, was the former Cogentrix power plant site adjacent to the Ports Virginia International Gateway Terminal. That was a blighted power plant, coal-fired power plant property that had certainly some environmental issues and had been sitting vacant and dormant for a number of years. We were successful in receiving $500,000 in funding for that demolition and clearance of the property for reuse. We are pleased to share, as you may be aware, that we do have a project. The developer of that site, Industrial Realty Group, and the operator is Unis, have plans for a 72,000 square foot transloading cross-dock facility there on the property. So you can see firsthand how these funds do assist in generating new economic interest and development for formerly brownfield redevelopment sites. In FY21, again, we were successful with another $500,000 award for the former BASF plant here in Portsmouth. This is the vacant portion of the site adjacent to where the Lineage Logistics cold storage freezer was developed. That 19-acre site was cleared and made ready for development. They are currently working to solicit interest for redevelopment opportunities out there. It's presently serving as a location for some trucking operations. And then last year, the most recent award, which I believe the members of this board were present to approve, was the International Flooring Protective Coating Project on Shipwright Street. That project involved the replacement of a large portion of their waterfront bulkhead, which had been deteriorated over the years. They were the recent purchaser of the property, and they have a number of improvements they're looking to make. But this really helps to start that phase approach at revitalizing the property. And that was an $856,000 award, the largest received in the state to date. So I hope that provides some background for you all as we move forward with discussions. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any before we.
Ms. Phillips?
Has that grant been paid out?
No, it has not. No.
So that's probably another, it's been approved by city council and the performance agreement has been executed.
We have executed a performance agreement with the state, yes.
Okay, and with the recipient.
We are finalizing the performance agreement with the recipient.
Thank you.
If we can move ahead to the next slide. So I'm very excited to introduce this year's application, which is submitted to you on behalf of Crofton Construction Services. They are located at 16 Harper Avenue. This is in the Portsmouth Marine Terminal area, just south of the terminal on Scotts Creek. Crofton is proposing replacement of waterfront bulkhead, very similar to last year's application, 276 linear feet. This is part of a phased revitalization effort that Crofton has been making at the facility. The grant request is $415,657 to be exact, as the third and final phase of the project. And that is a 50% of the actual project cost, which equals the 1-to-1 match that is required under the program. We do have, again, representatives from Crofton here this morning. I would like to turn it over to Jay Crofton and Camille Cherry and allow for them to provide you some background on Crofton and their activities and what their plans are as it relates to the project.
Good morning, Mr. Crofton, Ms. Cherry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all very much for having us. As Mr. Johnny said, I'm Camille Cherry. This is Jay Crofton. Is there a clicker or should I look at you all? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So I think all of you may have been in receipt of our application package. So if you've had a chance to review that, some of this will be a little bit redundant. So I'll try to keep it brief and then have a stacked agenda as well. A little bit of background on us. We were established in 1949, so we've been in business for over 70 years. We've been headquartered in Portsmouth since 1986. We started over in Norfolk, and just through growth and the need to be on the water in an accessible location that gave us sort of unfettered access to the clients and industries we were serving, Portsmouth became the ideal fit for us. And they worked with us and accepted us with open arms at the time. And so we've stayed here ever since. And it's been a great property for us to grow from. We're a second generation owned family owned and operated business. We have third generation family members involved as well, myself included. And since our founding in 1949, we've expanded from commercial diving into heavy marine construction, barge and tug rental, and crane rental and rigging services as well. We serve many industries in the Mid-Atlantic region, up and down the East Coast. We've done some work internationally as well. And we're hoping to explore the opportunities that are coming to us in this area and offshore wind too. We currently have a team of about 167 personnel. And that ranges from entry-level labor force to trade skills, skills trade, crane operators, boat captains, deckhands, hull drivers, as well as project managers, professional engineers, estimators, human resource staff, accounting personnel. So it runs the gamut. We have a really talented team that we're really fortunate to have with us. For our leadership team, as you met earlier, we have Jay Crofton here, Bob Crofton, Camille Crofton, and Kenny Crofton. In your application package, you probably noted that Kenny Crofton is the applicant. He is the president of the Construction Services Division. And he had to travel unexpectedly, so he is sorry he can't be here with us today. This is just a visual to help sort of convey how each of our divisions work together. So we have a commercial diving division, marine construction, and crane roll and rigging, who work independently very often, but many times, just from the nature of the industries that we serve, they collaborate and serve our clients and industries very collaboratively, because a lot of the services we provide are complementary and comprehensive in nature. So you'll see maritime, utility, construction, engineering, all three of those divisions are serving those industries together. I won't read through every single thing, but this is just an overview of some of the capabilities of each of our divisions. So in our heavy marine construction side, we cover bridge construction, fender systems, port facilities, water resource facilities, commercial diving. We're doing inspection and survey. We've been doing the underwater bridge inspection for the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel for over 30 years now. And for our crane rail and rigging side, we maintain a fleet of hydraulic truck cranes, as well as conventional cranes mounted on barges and floating crane derricks as well. And as Mr. Gullickson spoke about earlier, we have a few of our cranes, both hydraulic truck cranes and floating rigs, that are over at PMT now, helping with the disassembly of those cranes over there. So a little bit about the property. We're at 16 Harper Avenue. It's a 9-acre facility with 1,100 linear feet of waterfront property. We are industrial zoned. We're a designated enterprise zone. And sort of a fun fact, it's the previous site of a railroad spring bridge going from Penner's Point over to Hospital Point when the railroad was active a long time ago. So on our property, we have multiple warehouses that we're using for shipping, receiving of materials for our construction projects, welding, fabrication, and equipment repair and maintenance. And we're also in proximity to PMT, Virginia International Gateway, General Dynamics, and North Naval Shipyard, just to name a few. So this area of the site is the project area. And this site is really critical to our daily operations. It's used every single day for the mobilization and demobilization, staging materials that are then leaving our facility to go to project sites. And we frequently have very heavy equipment coming down this section of the property, moving materials from maybe a truck bed or another container onto barges that it's then being taken away to the other project sites. It's also where we're mooring vessels like tugboats and barges. And we'll touch on this a little bit later, but this area of the property as well has also come to serve as a space where we're mooring some of our vessels, which happened just because of a need for additional space. As we were growing, we got more equipment, larger equipment to accommodate larger projects. So we had to expand in that way to just accommodate all the machinery that we were using for our projects. And I'll touch on this point too. So the bulkhead area has experienced what would be normal deterioration for any site like that. But as we have grown, our equipment has gotten bigger, the materials for our projects has gotten in a higher volume, heavier materials. So our growth has also surpassed sort of the structural capability of this section of the property as well. So in addition to what would be normal deterioration, we're just outpacing the capacity of this area of the property as well. And to just demonstrate a little bit of the size and scope of some of the projects that we're taking on and the materials used for these, this is an example of barge loading facility and wharf upgrades, and it's Sims Metal Management. So materials like this, they may arrive at our facility. They might be stored there and staged there until they're ready to be received at the project site. That's when they're taken to that point, taken from a container vessel and lifted from a crane, put on a barge, and then taken to the project site as well. Same thing goes for Portsmouth Seawall. We've been really fortunate to be a part of that project for a number of years now, and same thing. A lot of those projects, until they're ready to be received at the project site, they come to our facility first. So it's a staging and prep site for mobilization and demobilization. A little bit more about the site condition. We had an assessment performed by Collins Engineers to really give some verbiage to the condition of the site. And they noted 100% loss of section to support members and loss of fill behind the bulkhead. Utilities are exposed, and they've also observed some lateral movement of bulkhead walls. The condition currently limits the function of the site significantly. It's a safety hazard for our workforce. The temporary workaround so far has been to lay steel mats up against the bulkhead, just to eliminate exposure of those holes and gaps between the bulkhead and the back shelf. But engineers' recommendation is that all loads have been restricted to about 20 feet from the work area, which makes it, it's very prohibitive to what we can do down at that section of the point in terms of what equipment we can have down there, how personnel can move about and perform daily operations. So for the project overview, as Brian was mentioning, we've approached this from a sort of a comprehensive waterfront restoration project, and we've done it in 3 phases. The first phase was to modify Scotts Creek Marina. This was a functioning marina several years ago, accommodating vessels of about 50 feet and like pleasure vessels, sailboats, things like that. And Crofton was in ownership of this property. And when we were desperate for more space to accommodate more vessels and things, they turned it over into barge loading facilities. And so these modifications, estimated investment was about $270,000. Then the phase 2 was to construct a concrete ramp structure that supported the barge loading operations in the modified marina area. So then the phase 3 is the demolition and replacement of this 276 linear feet of bulkhead. So the full investment of all these 3 phases is a little more than $1.5 million. But phase 3 is the one that we're applying for funding for today. So the project will be 276 linear feet of bulkhead replacement. It's the final phase of this multi-phase facility improvement project. And the total cost is estimated to about $831,000, and we're requesting funding for 50% of that to make the 1-to-1 match. So why does 16 Harbor Avenue become a good fit for the Port Coast City Revitalization Fund? The location and our industry served, the proximity to our surrounding terminals, shipyards, gives us unfettered access basically to all of our clients that we have served since our founding in 1949. And it's a critical piece of our infrastructure. It enables us to serve the industries that are major economic driving forces for our area. Maritime, shipbuilding and repair, energy, just to name a few. Those have been the pillars of our growth since we started. It's shovel ready. We've got permits in hand, designs are finalized. We don't require any rezoning. And we're not seeking any additional funding or outside financing. The plan is to self-fund the final phase of this project. And it aligns with City of Portsmouth goals. It is a development of a blighted related property. The structural integrity of this section of property will help us have continued revenue growth, provide additional tax revenue for the city, and enable us to continue hiring more full-time positions as well. To touch on the workforce development piece, this section of property will, once it reaches or achieves more structural integrity, will let us accommodate projects of a larger scope. We can have heavier equipment out on that point. And it'll just let us take on more projects that will accommodate the growth that we're after. And we anticipate that it will enable us to have at least 30 new full-time positions. And this includes safety, quality assurance, yard and facility management, general labor, crane operators, and boat operators. And as I mentioned, we have currently a staff of 167, but 13% of that workforce does reside here in Portsmouth. To touch a bit on the offshore wind opportunity, with a fully operational facility that can accommodate the mobilization and demob efforts for such a large scale project like the coastal offshore wind project, it really puts us in a good position to be able to accommodate that effort. I'm sure Mr. Gullickson has probably alluded to this project before, and you probably are all familiar with it, but it's the largest offshore wind project of its kind in the United States. PNT, which is right around the corner that we're already at doing the disassembly of those cranes, is going to serve as the staging area to support that effort. 72 acres of that facility will have to be redeveloped, and we're hoping to support that effort with underwater inspection services, marine construction, and equipment rental as well. So what's the immediate impact of this restoration? It's going to prevent negative environmental impact for further erosion and runoff into the river. It will definitely improve curb appeal for our neighbors in both residential properties and commercial properties. It will give us safer working conditions for our workforce, increased revenue opportunity for Crofton, as well as increased tax revenue for the city of Portsmouth. And furthermore, it'll prevent significant economic hardship for Crofton if we delay these repairs. The remediation efforts that we'll have to take on as a result will be of even more significant value than if we address it right now. And for that, I'll open it up to questions.
Any questions? Thank you for the presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr.
Chair,
Barr?
I have a question for Mr. Donahue. Was this the only application we received for this grant?
It was, and that is including the fact that the round was actually extended by the state for an additional period of time. The deadline for submissions of applications is currently September 30th. Originally, it was July 30th, but because of the fact that we had not received applications and there had been some other localities in the state that had not, it was extended. So we're fortunate that we do have an application for consideration in this round, but this was the only one we received.
How did we advertise? This
So we
Portsmouth.
promote the program in addition to outside sources through our internal sources, which would be our website. We do promote it through our interactions with businesses in this related industry that we're dealing with, as opportunities present themselves to speak with companies that may be eligible for the program.
Ms. Phillips?
Who is doing the match? Where is that money coming from?
So the match is completely private, so that would be provided by Crofton
Okay.
Industry Construction Services. So there is no city financial commitment or participation. It's strictly the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development and Crofton Construction Services are funding the entire project.
Ms. McSwain?
Just have a statement. I appreciate your presentation. When I had a question, you answered it right after the question popped up. So I appreciate you being thorough. Thank you so much.
Ms. Jackson?
I also have a statement and a question. You answered all my questions. I did prepare a lot of questions for today, so I do appreciate that. And then also, you mentioned that one of the benefits is that you guys will provide jobs to Portsmouth. I'm just curious to know, like, what programs or community outreach things that you guys actually do since you've been in the community for so long. What opportunities do you have for Portsmouth residents?
Sure. Well, I mean, a big piece of our workforce development is our internal training and development program. So we get a lot of entry level labor force. And so one thing we're committed to is our internal development and training. So we'll get a lot of entry level workforce that may not come to us with a skilled background necessarily, but through internal programs that we've developed, but also outside resources. We're able to make an investment in the people that come and work for us, to give them the training they need, whether it's to become a crane operator. We work with the Mid-Atlantic Maritime Academy to have interns work on our tugboats with our tugboat captains. And when they come and work with us afterwards as full-time, or they move on to another opportunity, that's been a really wonderful opportunity for us to work with them to help sort of develop the up-and-coming talent that can work in our industry.
Right, thank you.
Can I add that Crofton is also a partner with TCC's dual
That's what
enrollment
we- yeah,
program
I was
with Portsmouth Public Schools.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you again. So at this time, we will need to go into a closed meeting. Treasurer Bethea, would you take us into closed meeting by reading the statement, please?
I move to go into a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A.6 for the purpose of discussing the investment of public funds where competition or bargaining is involved, where if made public, initially the financial interest of the commission would be adversely affected, specifically regarding Port Host community grants in pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A.3 for the purpose of discussing the disposition of real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding 3920 Burton's Point Road.
Your motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Bethea.
Yes.
Ms. McSwain.
Yes.
Mr. Parr.
Yes.
Mr. Williams. Ms. Jackson
Yes.
and Ms. Allen.
Yes, I'd also like it noted that Mr. Williams had to depart, but we do still maintain a quorum.
The motion is adopted. We are now in closed session.
I hereby move that each. You ready? Okay. I hereby move that each commissioner is certified to the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
Need a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. The motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Bethea.
Yes.
Ms. McSwain.
Yes.
Mr. Parr.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson
Yes.
and Ms. Allen.
Yes,
The motion is adopted. We are now in open meeting.
thank you. We're now down to,
We are now down to our next item, which is a resolution. And our deputy city attorney has a copy that I believe he was prepared to.
Yes, here's the proposed resolution. Be it resolved that the Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission wishes to apply for $415,657 of Port Host Community Revitalization Funds for the Crofton Construction 16 Harper Avenue project for the development of property in support of port-related activity within the city of Portsmouth, Virginia. And whereas $415,657 of private funds will also be expended on this property, and it is projected that 30 new jobs will result from the implementation of the project. Be it further resolved that, one, the submission of an application for Port Host Community Revitalization Funds for the reference project is hereby approved by the PPIC Board of Commissioners. Two, the chair and the vice chair are each hereby authorized to execute and submit the appropriate documents for the submittal of the Port Host Community Revitalization Fund application. Three, the chair, vice chair, and secretary, and the secretary's designees are hereby authorized to take such other actions and execute such other agreements or documents as may be required to further the intent of this resolution. Before this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its adoption. If that's acceptable, we take a motion and a second to adopt that.
I move to adopt the resolution as presented.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Bethay,
Yes.
Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Ms. Allen.
Yes.
The item is adopted. So 5-0.
Thank you. And now, items submitted by commissioners. Mr.
I'll make
Fuller.
it really quick. Furthering and I think making it more attractive for A&P to purchase the property. Engineer Wright has asked that the PPIC submit a letter of support for his grant application to the state for funds to complete some improvements along Victory Boulevard coming into Burton's Point Road. It's not any financial commitment from us, just that another entity supports this project, and further the outcomes of the joint land use study that was completed a couple of years ago. So if I can forward that to you, Brian, can we get that done next
Uh,
meeting? Agree on the language? I don't know, do we have
Yes.
to vote on it?
If you'd like to forward that to me.
Yeah.
For consideration and moving forward with that.
Just rewrite. Yeah, he sent us a template, so.
Anyone else for items submitted from commissioners? Hearing none, do we have any report backs?
Madam Chair, we do not have any report backs for you today.
Once again, thank you to our city manager, Tanya Chapman, our city council liaison, Councilman Bill Moody, and our city attorney. Ms. LaVonda Graham Williams. Thank you all so much. First, Chris, thank you for being here this morning. Meeting is adjourned.